These are the most extreme, serious sanctions, financial sanctions that have ever been imposed. Bear in mind that FDR froze Japanese bank accounts and stopped exports of oil to Japan in August 1941, 4 months before Pearl Harbor. You know, they say that the supply chain is not a big part of the economy. It is the economy. And we're going to shut that down with what we're doing to Russia. So, not nice guys, and I'm not defending the invasion. I'm just saying if you want to use financial weapons, be prepared for the blowback. The thing with the militaries is when everyone else really screws up badly, it gets dumped in your lap. So you're the guys who are going to have to clean up whatever mess comes out of this, as we see in Ukraine right now. And this Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, he took both hands and slammed them palm down on the table. Boom, like that. He goes, the dollar was the global reserve currency. It is the global reserve currency, and it will always be the global reserve currency. What's interesting to me right now is that, you know, in my world, you read, you know, Zero Hedge or Credit Suisse or Wall Street Research, but the buzz is, wait a second, look around. China and Russia are going to get a lot of gold and develop cryptocurrencies and get out from under dollar hegemony, and they're going to do an end run around the dollar, and it's the end of the dollar. It's like, yeah, that was chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Currency Wars, which I wrote it in, it came out in 2011. A lot of the writing was done in 2010, but it's based on an actual financial war game, the first financial war game that the Pentagon ever did. And I was a facilitator and a participant, but that was the scenario we launched, which is that Russia and China would accumulate gold. So I guess it's good to be ahead of your time, but if you're 12 years ahead of your time, people forget you ever did it. But we warned the Pentagon. And the fact is, at the time we did that war game, Russia had 600 tons of gold. Today, they have 2,300 tons of gold. In other words, they did exactly what we told the Pentagon they would do. And now that, and I've had, you know, many other discussions at the Pentagon, you know, CIA and elsewhere, the Fed and the Treasury for that matter, where I explain this to them. And they either yawn or I remember one incident, I was at the Pentagon, I was one seat away from the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Treasury. And I outlined the scenario. I said, look, if you keep using dollar sanctions, people are not punching bags. You can hit it and hit it and hit it. But one of these times they're going to get out of the way and they're going to say, okay, enough. I'm getting out of the dollar system because you're using the dollar system to take me down. So why would I be in that system? And it's easier said than done. But I kind of outlined the scenario, and this Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, he took both hands and slammed them palm down on the table. Boom, like that. He goes, the dollar was the global reserve currency. It is the global reserve currency, and it will always be the global reserve currency. And I turned to him, I said, David, I feel like I'm listening to John Bull on Whitehall in 1913, at a time when they were quite sure that sterling would always be the global reserve currency. So I kind of left it at that. But here we are, I think, at a point where these sanctions, and I've read them all, it's like 100 pages of material. New ones are coming out every day, but I did a deep dive on it for some clients. And the first announcement was like nothing. That was a nothing burger. But the second round that Biden issued and the Treasury issued on, I think, February 26th, that's the real deal. They're shutting down the Russian economy. However, the unanticipated or unexpected consequence of that is that big hunks of the economy, starting with Russia and China, are going to get out of the dollar system. So it's kind of a big deal. So that's what I've been doing the last 40 years. So it's exactly what I've encountered over and over again in the U.S. government, and worked for government agencies, but met with many others in many different contexts. So I had a meeting at the Pentagon once with a kind of spooky office called ONA. Like, what's ONA? That's the Office of Net Assessment. Sounds like the most boring outfit you can think of, except they are the futurists. They are the deep thinkers. They're the ones who are supposed to look 5-10 years ahead, see where power is going, and get ready now. So it's a pretty important job. And there was a guy in that position for like 45 years. When I met him, he was 91, but sharp as a tack. I mean, it's not like an age thing. This guy was very on top of it. He was the head of it. And I took him through one of these scenarios. And I was talking at the time about the SDR, the special drawing right. You say SDR, people think it's a strawberry daiquiri in the rocks, but it's a special drawing right, which I call world money, because it is world money. They just don't want to call it that because it's kind of spooky. But I said, Mr. Marshall, I said, the figure's 92, I can call him Mr., but it is, I said, Mr. Marshall, I said, the day will come when your destroyer will pull up to a fuel depot in Singapore and you'll say, fill her up. And the guy will say, fine, pay me in SDRs. And said, for the first time in over a century, you're going to have a forward deployed military that you have to pay for in a currency that you don't print. And he wasn't a big talker, he's a good listener, but he said, yeah. And then he said, but the Treasury really doesn't like it when we talk about the dollar. And he was right, but it was a perfect example, crystallization of how the Treasury's over here, the Fed's over here, the Pentagon's over here. They don't talk to each other as much as you might think, and they definitely don't get in what they call equities, each other's equities. But I said, the thing with the militaries is when everyone else really screws up badly, it gets dumped in your lap. So you're the guys who are going to have to clean up whatever mess comes out of this, as we see in Ukraine right now. And so maybe you should be a little more involved. But I always find the most creative thinkers and the best solutions are in the interdisciplinary space. If you can bring physics, economics, law, kinetic warfare, and monetary authority, if you can bring all that to the table, you can come up with some really good solutions. But as long as you stay in your silos and protect your turf, you're going to probably miss more than you see. So you're right to say that that's a problem. I've encountered it time and time again. I don't see anyone really working towards a solution. It just seems to be more of the same. My biggest critique of the Biden administration, I have more than one, but is that and Joe Biden himself, I just feel sorry for. He should be in a home. I mean, I sort of fault his family for letting him do what he's doing because he's not capable. But you could have that and still be okay if you were surrounded by, for example, George Shultz, James Baker, Henry Kissinger, in their prime, Dean Acheson. If you had a crew like that around, I'd say, all right, we're in good hands, even if the president's not all there. But they don't. I mean, this is a really weak staff in addition to a disabled leader. And they have what I call John Kerry disease, and it's been developing for a long time, appears to be contagious, but it's the elevation of process over substance. Now you need both. Substance is where you win or lose. It's how you do things. It's how you implement policies, how you get things done. But yeah, okay, you need a process. You can't just be rogue operators. But we're at a point where as long as you're getting on a plane and flying to Geneva or Zurich and going into a fancy conference room and going to a conference or the Munich conference or Davos or, JCPOA, as long as you're doing that, it's okay. It doesn't matter if you actually achieve anything or anything that's in your interest, as long as you're going to Geneva on a regular basis. And I think John Kerry really perfected this, but it's really caught on with a whole generation. So I look at people like Jake Sullivan, Tony Blinken, Susan Rice, don't get me started, but Ron Klain, Jen Psaki. I do ask myself a lot if she's actually a really capable robot. I mean, she's so robotic that I think Disney has actually kind of implemented her, but we'll see. But seriously, they're all about the process. So a great example just happened in the last 72 hours. So we can talk about nuclear warfighting in a minute, but we're kind of, maybe I'll mention it right now. I studied nuclear warfighting beginning in the late 60s, not long after Herman Kahn and Henry Kissinger and Wolfstetter and others did their leading work on that subject. And there's a lot. There's counterforce, countervalue, first strike, second strike, et cetera. And a lot of it's in game theoretic space, kind of on Newman. But the one thing that they all said, every one of them said, was don't go there. Meaning nobody wakes up and says, oh, I think I'll have a nuclear war today. Nobody starts out in that place. You get there by escalation. Escalation is the key word. And so don't start down that track, because you could end up with a nuclear war, even though that's not what you intended. And the Cuban Missile Crisis is a perfect case study of that. Well, I look at what's going on today. We are going down that road.